everybody.
Any employees?
Good evening. Before I officially call us to order, I would like to ask everybody to please silence your cell phones. Yes, council members also, everybody, get those cell phones silenced. Good evening and welcome to the Brevard City Council meeting. I want to thank everybody that has come here in person. It is always great to see our constituents in the flesh here, but I also want to thank those that are watching us online. As we start, I want to introduce the people sitting up here. On my far right, we've got our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to him, we have Councilman Lauren Wise. Then we have Councilwoman Pamela Holder, Councilman Mac Morrow. I'm Mayor Maureen Kopoloff. To my immediate left is City Clerk Denise Hodgson. Next to Denise is Mayor Pro Tem and Councilman Gary Daniel. Then we have Councilman Aaron Baker and our City Manager Wilson Hooper. Okay, with that, thank you all. And I would like to ask the Reverend Shelley Webb, who is the Director of Sharing House, to please open with an invocation. Shelley.
Thank you again for inviting me. Let us pray. God of all creation, how good it is to be gathered here on this plot of green earth in this public building, nestled between these strong mountains, so that we can reach our ultimate goal to care for every member of our community. We come anticipating a night filled with laughter and cheers. We come with pride as we celebrate retirement and promotion of public officers. We will see colorful PowerPoints and plans and hear passionate words from those tasked to find creative solutions to our quagmire of social problems like housing, infrastructure, quality of life. And God, we are glad to be basking here in the joy of this night, as we each have the freedom to be here and to speak and to ponder, to yearn, and to vote. As the city council members and mayor take their places and we, the people, sit with ideas and desires, help us to listen to one another, believing in the best of one another. And remind us that we are still part of a bigger human family where not everyone has the luxury to exercise freedom, to gather, to work together as members of a community. And God, remind us that there are those in our human family across the globe who are suffering, who have needs that call for our attention, that beg for less violence, more patience, and a degree of confident compromise. Remind us, God, that we are more than our one idea, that we are uniquely woven into your strategy to love each one on earth, to love each plot of green field on earth, to love each creature with amazing grace, embedded in all of us in this circle tonight. So be with us now. May we each shine with our best self, our best effort, our best words, and when we leave this room, may we each know that we have been here to walk in this place with both pride and joy. We pray through the one who calls us to be one beautiful, strong city of Brevard. Amen.
Amen. Shelley, would you take a minute and just tell us a little bit about Sharing House?
I will. So Sharing House, currently today, we're 43 years
Best
old.
effort,
our best words, and when we leave this collaborative, that was set up to be a crisis ministry. So if anyone is in need of food, clothing, financial crisis assistance, many people, not just churches, but businesses, individuals have come together to help support those who are with low resources, to make sure that they can get by for at least 30 more days. We are booming right now. We have children and their families that are coming for our back to school program. We've already served, it's only been open for a week, we've already served 247 children. Wow. We anticipate around 100 kids will receive that long list that you'll find in the Transylvania Times of the needs to go back to school. It's very expensive if you have children, and if you have multiple children in school, you'll know that it's quite costly to just get the children on their best foot forward. We have a big donor that has gifted each child a pair of brand-new tennis shoes. And that is a huge confidence booster. So we give thanks for all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that Sharing House does for our community. You are such a vital partner, and we appreciate you.
And we appreciate the city being a partner with us. Thanks.
Thank you. If everyone would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, honor, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you have a quorum. All members are present.
Okay. Council members, you have the draft agenda in front of you. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
Excuse me, Mayor, I don't have a proposed change, but I have a corrected attachment that I'd like to pass out. So this replaces the attachment in the package for both items related to the Acoustic Trail Advisory Board. Please refer to this updated attachment during that discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Council members, you got a copy of the June 17th, 2024 minutes of that meeting. Are there any proposed corrections to those minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. And now we will move into public comments. Mr. Attorney, could you get me the sign-up list, please? Thank you. The public is invited to speak during public comment at this time on any topic unless it is a public hearing item on this agenda. And there is one public hearing on underground wiring ordinance tonight. Anyone who wants to speak must register with the city clerk, which is what this sign-up is. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of city council, state your name and address clearly, limit comments to 3 minutes or less, and avoid repetition. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. And we will go in the order that people signed. The first person is Mr. Billy Parrish.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Billy Parrish. I'm a full-time resident of Brevard and live at 515 Brevard Street. I'm the current president of Heart of Brevard and the co-chair of the Heart of Brevard Built Environment Committee. I also serve as a member of the Downtown Master Plan Committee representing the Heart of Brevard. I'm offering this public comment to you tonight in my role as Heart of Brevard president. The Heart of Brevard supports the concept being put forward in tonight's resolution declaring the current terminus of the Brevard Trail System at West Main Street as the named Brevard terminus of the Acoustic Trail project. This public declaration of intent will ensure that the Acoustic Trail fulfills its stated purpose of linking downtown Hendersonville and downtown Brevard from Main Street to Main Street. Additionally, we believe that creating a clear connection between this new Main Street terminus to downtown proper is a crucial next step. In fact, the resolution before the council aligns seamlessly with a pathway pilot project that our Built Environment Committee has been diligently developing over the past several months. The Heart of Brevard is in the final stages of preparing our pathway pilot project proposal for presentation to the appropriate city committees and community partners. We welcome tonight's resolution as a critical first step in strengthening the connection between Brevard's trail system and downtown. Thank you for all that you do for our community and for downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Our next speaker is Jimmy Veal. Thank you, Mr. Veal. It's a little hard to read.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jimmy Veal. I'm living up at 187 Pinnacle Road. I really want to yield my time to Shelley again because that was the most fabulous prayer. Some of you guys are aware I have an issue that's sort of kind of pending with the city. I've made an effort to reach out to a few of you on the council, had a conversation with Mr. McKellar last November. It's kind of moving in the slow lane for one reason or another. It has to do with access to 5 or maybe 4 pieces of property that are landlocked by the bottom 200 feet of the Bracken Preserve Trail, hopefully inadvertently. I'm searching for a solution that would provide access back to those properties. On that note, I'm going to wrap it up, but I would like to reach out to you guys individually over the next week or so and see if I could sit down and have a one-on-one combo with you. It would be nice to resolve this at council level than having to bring in explore other avenues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Veal. Our next speaker is James Carley.
Good evening, Council. Hope you're doing all right, getting back in the swing of things after a nice summer. I'm James Carley, resident of Burrell Avenue here in Brevard, and I'm a member of the Brevard Planning Board here in my own capacity. I'm speaking in favor of the affordable housing plan you're going to hear tonight at the Presbyterian Church property. It is a good idea. I'm very supportive, and here's a few reasons why. We are all very aware of the need for affordable housing in our community. There's a report just a few years ago, 2021, 22, I'm not exactly sure, that identified a shortage of somewhere between 800 and 1,200 units, and that was a few years ago, of affordable housing. The comprehensive land use master plan that the board passed and sent to the council for approval called for a prioritization of infill development in our city, and that is an example of infill development. You've got a vacant lot close to town that can be used. Urban planning best practices call for increased residency in downtown cores, which anchor residents near amenities, boosting economic activity while reducing negative externalities like traffic and pollution. Recent ordinance updates also permit new and innovative materials like more permeable pavers to reduce water runoff and making parking more efficient for developments like this. Negative impacts of this development will be lower today than if this were built just a few years ago before these code changes were passed. And we have the need. We've reduced the impacts through changes in the code, and now is the right time to move forward with this kind of project in this type of location. So I look forward to seeing the presentation tonight. I am going to have to scoot, so hopefully I can catch it online if I don't see it here tonight. But thank you all for what you do, and I'm excited to give my support as a resident to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carley. All right, that is everybody that signed up for public comment. All right, next we have some certificates and promotions. All right, and I believe Chief Tom Jordan is going to do the presentation of the retirement badge and plaque to Lieutenant Charles Richard Harbin.
Rick, can I get you on up here? For a long feet. Rick, I want to present you with this plaque, minus that one thing I said. It slipped by me. They wrote Brevard Police Department and did it in a little P instead of a big P. So afterwards, I'm going to take this back and get it corrected, but I don't want to wait any longer. So, Rick, this is presented to you. Lieutenant Charles Richard Harbin upon his retirement from the Brevard Police Department. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Rick, thank you for all your service. Rich retired. But it's got also his ID with this strapping picture of this manual here. And Rick, just want to present you your retirement credentials. Thank you very much. And one more thing here. Brent Sorrells, are you in the audience? We'll just keep things moving. I know you haven't met for a month, so.
All right, just keep things moving,
going.
yes.
You have somebody that you want? They must know who it was that you waved to. for that. Brent is being promoted to the rank of lieutenant. He was a sergeant, which kind of goes with family. He moves on up to lieutenant. You don't know this right now, but he's shaking. He's really excited right now. Brent, this is your badge, Lieutenant Brevard Police, and he would like to stab him with this part right here. That would be nice.
Congratulations.
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 Chief, and to Lieutenant Harbin, thank you so much for all of your service to our city, and to our new lieutenant, we look forward to working with you as you serve our city. So thank you. Moving on, we have a special presentation. I believe Emily Brewer from our planning department will be talking about the engagement for affordable housing project on the Brevard Davidson River Presbyterian Church property. Emily?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you all know, the City of Brevard engaged the Development Finance Initiative out of the UNC School of Governments way back in March of 2023 to help us look at affordable housing development opportunities. And as of June, the City of Brevard and the Brevard Davidson River Presbyterian Church entered into a lease agreement to facilitate development of affordable housing on approximately 4.5 acres of land that is behind the church right now. So DFI will be working with us on a pre-development feasibility study that includes a number of different elements, but the one we're talking about today is community engagement. DFI is going to be conducting really 2 phases of community engagement sessions during this process, where they will solicit community input on public interests that are to be addressed by this project, and it will also request targeted feedback on feasible housing development program options. You have a, thank you, Billy. You have a memo from them about exactly what that's going to look like, but I wanted to highlight some of our upcoming events that we already have scheduled. So this first phase of engagement, as I said, will be focused on the guiding public interests for the development of that property. Here we go. Public interests are statements that represent the values and goals of the project, as well as inform the trade-offs for the site's development. An example public interest would be development on this church site should enhance pedestrian connectivity from the site and the surrounding neighborhood to downtown. So that's just an example of some of the things that we're going to be looking for as part of this community engagement. We also will have a second phase of engagement that occurs later, as I mentioned, that will have more targeted discussions around potential development concepts. We're right now at the public interest values phase of this. And of course, after all of the engagement events, DFI will compile the input and share residents' feedback regarding both the public interest and the development program for City Council's consideration on moving forward. You have the exact timeline of that in your packet, but we have 3 upcoming events I wanted to share. They're all on this flyer over here and flyer up on the screen, and the flyers are all over there by the sign-in sheet as well. We will have 2 in-person events, one on August 20th at 2 p.m. and one at August 20th at 6 p.m. The first will be at the Brevard Davidson River Presbyterian Church, and the second will be at the Rogo Room at the library. We will also have a virtual event held via Zoom, which will be available at the city's website. And then that will be on Thursday, August 22nd from 5:30 to 7 p.m. We're really looking forward to these engagement events. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to hear all of the different ideas and goals of this project and be able to work with the Development Finance Initiative to help facilitate that conversation. So I really hope that you all will be able to join. We're very excited about it. And share it all. It'll be all over our social media, and it's on the city's website already, and flyers are posted everywhere already. So we look forward to all of those events. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions from council before we move on? Okay, I think that was pretty straightforward. Thank you, Emily. All right, we will move on to our second special presentation, and that is the Augusta Trail Advisory Board Reformation and Trail Governance Update. And our city manager will present this.
Yes, ma'am, that's me, and I'll ask my colleagues if one of y'all wouldn't mind bringing up my PowerPoint there. And while he's doing that, I just want to begin my remarks by apologizing for my absence at the June 26th workshop that informed this presentation. For those who don't know, I was having some health issues, and they couldn't have come at a worse time because this was an important meeting to be at, and I'm afraid I missed it. But staff has updated me thoroughly, and I've talked to a couple of you all, and so I think that the feedback you gave during that session has been incorporated well into my proposal tonight. So here's a little preview of what I intend to cover. You know, there are really three significant elements of trail governance, in my opinion. The first, and what we're going to focus on the most tonight, is how do we make our trail-related decisions? And there are plenty of them to make here in the next few months. Second, how do we go about jointly managing the trail with our partners in Henderson County and perhaps Friends of Augusta Trail? And third, how do we integrate the trail into everything else that we do? As I said, today we'll primarily focus on the first, but I don't think I can get out of here without commenting on the second and third, and so I'll have a few remarks on those. The history of the project is long, stretching all the way back to 2009 when the city of Hendersonville first endorsed the idea of using the disused railroad bed for a trail. But for the purposes of our discussion tonight, the history begins in 2021 when the current Augusta Trail Advisory Board was established. And, you know, usually PowerPoint slides are kind of summaries of the content that you're talking about, but this PowerPoint slide essentially contains the entire charter of the Augusta Trail Advisory Board. And if you don't believe me, look over here. That's it. It's kind of short and, in my opinion, kind of ambiguous. And so the purpose of these exercises that we've been going through over the last few months and that I hope we can make some progress on tonight is to establish a new board that has a charter with a little bit more clarity of purpose. With that said, the existing group deserves a lot of credit because they kept this long shot project alive. They were the ones who insisted that we apply for federal funding, that we won, not essentially, we did win. And they were the ones that turned this from a dream into a reality. And in the summer of 2023, when we won those two federal grants, RAISE and NSFLTP, that was a milestone season in Brevard's history, and I think that when the history books are written, we're going to need a whole chapter for the summer of 2023. But it was a milestone for another reason as well, and that is, in my opinion, it seemed to trigger some soul searching about how we were actually going to do this thing. You know, as I said, it was a dream up until then, but once it became a reality, I think people's thoughts shifted a little bit. And since that time, there's been a lot of different opinions about how we should go about governing the trail and executing the project. But I think two things are clear and that and there's consensus on. The first is that community interest is high in this project because it's going to have community-wide impacts. And then the second thing I think we can agree upon is that up until now, I hope, no one quite knew who was making the decisions with regards to this trail. And in my opinion, this was no more clear than back earlier this calendar year when we had the discussion in this room about the possibility of using the Pisgah Health property as a trailhead. I think that that discussion sort of revealed the deficiency in our decision-making process. So the purpose of the exercise, as I just mentioned, is to provide some clarity as to what our decision-making process is going to be going forward, to establish an advisory group whose membership is appropriate and credible. And in fact, that's my number one goal of this whole exercise, is to establish a decision-making group that is credible in your eyes, council, because they're going to be weighing in on some important questions that I'll describe here shortly. I'm calling the new group ETAB 2.0, Acoustic Trail Advisory Board 2.0. And here is my proposed membership for that board. And I'll pause here and let you look over the membership I have proposed. Some of these are familiar agencies and names. Some of them are new, but these are the names I'm recommending. And if you have any questions about why I've recommended these folks in particular, I'll be happy to answer those. And I just want to say that with the exception of the at-large folks, who I've recommended we reappoint the incumbents, Madeline Hanley and Meredith Carley, to continue to serve in those at-large positions. All the rest of the members belong to groups whose purposes align with the public goals of the trail. Okay. I want to talk in particular about one new agency that's on my list of recommended members, and that's the Transylvania Economic Alliance. They haven't been on the ETAB so far, and frankly, they haven't really been involved in trail discussions very much at all, but I think they ought to be, and I'll tell you why. If you're not familiar with the Transylvania Economic Alliance, they are our local economic development agency. They specialize in industry recruitment, workforce development, and small business support, among other things. And they need to be on there, in my opinion, so that we can figure out how to leverage the trail into commerce, how we use it to generate commerce, how we use it to support workforce. And I think that we are duty-bound to do that and to try to use the trail for those purposes, because that's the premise that we were awarded the RAISE dollars under. RAISE wasn't intended to fund a recreational amenity. RAISE was intended to fund a piece of infrastructure that helped support workforce and employment. And so for that reason, I strongly recommend that we offer a seat on our groups going forward to the Transylvania Economic Alliance. Okay, moving on. What specifically is the reconstituted ETAB going to decide? What's in their decision bucket? And that's a term you're going to hear me use a lot here in the months to come. It's hard to identify exactly what questions the board's going to be asked to consider because the project is ever evolving, but I've tried. And so on the screen here are a list of the types of things that I recommend we seek the advice of the reconstituted ETAB on. And if you have to sum up what these items are, they are things that relate to the trail's usability and community impacts. And I mentioned earlier that the credibility of this group is important because some of the decisions that they're going to make have significant trade-offs. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're not going to be able to afford everything we want. Even though we got 2 grants, even though we got more money than we ever hoped we could get, there's a lot of externalities that are affecting this project. The cost of construction, the fact that some of the grant money is restricted to certain things and can't be used on everything we might want, and a host of other reasons. But for those reasons, we're not going to be able to afford everything we want. And so the recommendations that this group makes will constitute some significant trade-offs. And not everything they agree to is going to be is going to have 100% consensus in the community. And so it's very important that this group be viewed as credible in your eyes and by the community, because I don't think all their decisions are going to be slam dunks. This slide contains a few other administrative provisions I'm proposing for the reconstituted board. The last few slides that I've gone over, their content is reflected in the draft resolution that I handed out to you. And that's what I'll be asking you to adopt a little later this evening, either as presented by me or with amendments that you all agree to collectively. If you see fit to move forward with the new ETAB, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and not only adopt the new charter, but also appoint the recommended participants so that we can get started as soon as possible. NCDOT, which, if you'll recall, is the agency that's administering the project on our behalf, has been waiting patiently for us for a few months now to get our house in order so we can start weighing in on some of these questions, like which amenities we want to pursue in the next phase of design, etc. Okay, this isn't in the resolution, but it's something I want to tell you about, and that is I plan to convene a complementary working group of staff people from all the participating agencies, as well as NCDOT, our rural planning organization, and the trails design firm TP&D, to work through the details of these matters and tee them up, tee ETAB's decisions up for them. We'll act for that group much like city staff acts for you, facilitating your work in this way. That's a practical thing more than anything, because all the folks who've been recommended to serve on this committee have full-time jobs and don't necessarily have the ability to come and sit with us during business hours and spend 4 hours working through the particulars of something. And so I want the experts from those agencies to help me out in that way. All right. I mentioned the phrase decision buckets a little earlier. You know, maybe it's a corny phrase, but I like it, and so I'm going to use it a lot. I talked about the types of things that will be in ETAB 2.0's decision bucket, and they are in the middle column there, also listed in the resolution that I passed out. But I want to talk about council's decision bucket as well, so the column on the right. The matters that are in council's decision buckets are matters that, by their nature, either because they have to do with our most solemn service, public safety, or because of their cost, like maintenance service levels and so forth, or because they have to do with our role as a regulator, like land use planning and regulation, can't easily be delegated to an advisory group. So these are things that are, in my opinion, are important enough to be brought to you all directly. And then, of course, there's a couple of things on there that you have explicitly reserved for yourself, like the decision to name or on whether or not to name Main Street as the terminus for the trail. And while I'm on City Council's bucket, I want to focus on two of those bullets in particular, specifically the bullets that reference the agreement with Henderson County and potentially Friends of Acosta Trail. Right now, the working proposal that we have amongst those three groups is that we sign a three-way interlocal agreement between us and those two parties. However, I'm not sure that shouldn't be a separate agreement with Henderson County and Friends of Acosta Trail. But whether it's one agreement or two, the purpose of those agreements is to memorialize our relationship with the partners that presumably we will be co-managing the trail with, and outline minimum service levels for things like landscape maintenance, public safety coverage, and the like. Again, because of the expense of those things, and because I think that governments ought to negotiate with one another using their elected leaders, I think the terms of those agreements should come directly to you all for consideration. And that's why, again, I've put them in your decision bucket. Oh, I should have gone to this slide before. Apologies. So more to come on this topic as it develops. Okay. So this exercise that we went through on June 26th and tonight will set us up to work through the most immediate questions facing the trail. And later in the agenda, of course, we'll ask for you to consider a resolution reforming the Acoustic Trail Advisory Board with new membership and an updated charge, and also ask you to discuss the Main Street terminus proposal. But please note that that's not the end of the discussions that this group will need to have. After tonight, I think we'll need to schedule another workshop, this time with the council alone, not with the advisory board or with the Parks and Trails Committee, to consider some of the other matters that are in your bucket. And I've included on this slide a couple of examples of what I mean. And I want to talk in particular about the top bullet there, revise land use regulations to orient new development to the trail, question mark. Is that something we want to do? Do we want to revise do we want to build our land use patterns so that they accommodate the trail? I just want to share, council, that I'm watching the planning department's process of creating the Pisgah Gateway mixed-use district with interest, because I think if it goes well, it could be a model for building I'm going to use a big fancy word here that might make me seem kind of snobby, a bespoke planning district for a special piece of infrastructure. And if it goes well, I think we might be able to follow that and create a bespoke zoning district for areas around the trail. We could call it trail-oriented development. And it could require things like sidewalk connections and orienting I don't know what it could include, but it could include a lot of requirements that would make any new development in the trail area accommodating to the trail. But that's a big policy decision, so that's really you all's decision to decide. But here are a couple other matters that I think that the council needs to consider to incorporate the trail better into civic life here in Brevard. And then if you'll think back to the complementary working group that I talked about a few minutes ago, I invited those folks to attend because I think that they're going to be able to inform these questions as well. So they're not just going to be here to work through items that the ETAB is considering, but to help us work through these items as well. And so just to reiterate, the second full bullet on there, I recommend that in the weeks to come, we schedule an additional workshop to talk about how to incorporate the trail into our areas of service and consider how to better integrate it into community life. So stay tuned for that. We'll start polling you all to see what dates here in the next month or so work for you to hold that workshop. All right, that's all I have for now. Mayor, I don't know if you want to do questions or remarks now or wait till we get to the business part of the agenda, but I'm ready either way.
I think it makes the most sense to open it up for discussion now, immediately after your presentation. So we will go with questions and comments now, and then council can think about this until we get to a new business when we will actually call for a vote. So I will open it up for comments with Mr. Baker.
Sure. First, I want to thank the manager for tackling this. I think we had some spirited discussion at the joint meeting, and it was clear that we needed to sort of reset how we were governing the acoustic trail, and it makes sense, how we got to this point. The trail really was a dream for a long time, and a lot of people worked very hard to make that dream a reality, but thankfully we moved very quickly from the dreaming phase to the reality sort of smacking us in the face phase, but in a good way. And I think this new committee represents a sort of a new level of seriousness and purpose behind the entire acoustic trail project that was needed. So, the amount of money that we're talking about here, we can sometimes get lost in the weeds of, trail talk and, the bells and whistles. But at the end of the day, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars being invested into infrastructure. And it's critically important that the city takes that seriously and makes sure that how we're making decisions about a project like that in a very serious way. So, again, I'm supportive of this proposal. I think it represents how we should move forward. I did have just one clarifying question on the charge that is laid out for the advisory board. Some of these areas where the ETAB is able to make recommendations, some of them will have potentially significant budget ramifications. So I just wanted to talk through how, Wilson, you would recommend, just as a hypothetical, the type and location of complementary amenities outside of federally funded project, the federally funded project footprint. Well, that would have a direct effect on our budget and some of the funding decisions that we make. So how do you see that playing out from the ETAB's decision-making and then moving on to the council level?
Yes, sir. So the bright line that I see that sort of separates the ETAB's charge from the council's responsibilities are the ETAB makes recommendations only for money that's specifically designated for the trail, which the bulk of which, of course, is the federal funds. But as you know, we've got Friends of Acoustic Trails money. We've got the TDA contribution. Presumably, we'll have some private gifts as well. And so I'm only asking that they make recommendations on how to spend those dollars, and that any recommendation on how to spend city dollars lie exclusively with you all.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all I have.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, first, I'd like to say that at the workshop that we had, I stated that I had not seen the branding information that was presented, and I was mistaken. I would like to withdraw that comment. I did see that. I just forgotten it, so let me clarify that. But this plan, for me, answers a lot of the concerns that I've had. It seems to exhibit that we understand now that this is important to the city of Brevard, and there are things that we need to be working on specifically and directly. And I think that this is still maybe has some development that it'll undergo, but I think this is a great start. So,
Thank you. Mr. Wise?
First of all, thanks for all the work everyone put into getting this together. I also had to miss that original meeting because of a stupid vacation. Again. But I think we've been saying for a while that we kind of caught a tiger by the tail when we actually got this to happen and didn't know exactly what to do with it. And this is a great step in really determining how we want the Acoustic Trail project to develop. And I think we're moving, thankfully, away from thinking of this as a big park to an actual economic engine, and that's what it is. And let's make no mistake about it. So the inclusion of T and HOB and other entities onto this board is really critical, I think, and helping us realign our thinking about what the real value of this project is. It will be great as a park, but that to me is 10% of the other 90%. So I'm really excited. I agree with Councilman Daniel. I think there's some things that we'll need to kind of fine tune and work out as we move through the process, but I think I'm really excited that we're actually being proactive and getting some understanding about this project moving forward.
Thank you. Ms. Holder?
Thank you so much. The first thing that I was thinking about is your presentation or thought of having membership terms that are indefinite. And so I was wondering what your thinking might be behind that, to have indefinite terms. Not that I'm against it, I just want to understand what the manner of thinking is in that way.
Just so we can have some consistency through the construction and opening and first year of operation for the trail, which I think presumably are going to happen here over the next 3 years. And so for those who don't have the proposal in front of them, I recommend that the terms are indefinite, but that this council go through a similar exercise like we're doing right now and review the composition and charge of the committee every 3 years.
So I'll still use the excuse, I'm kind of new. So who on our council has had the longest amount of experience on the committee already, on this board, advisory board already?
Mayor, I need some help with that.
The members that have been on the advisory board the longest, elected members, would be myself and Mr. Morrow.
Okay.
He was on for 2 years, and I was on for 2.5 years.
All right. And what part of Main Street are we proposing as far as the terminus, or have you gotten that far yet? For the terminus?
Well, so I think that the sort of official terminus, if we pass that change, would be where the existing trail intersects with Main Street, right over here. I can't think of the names of the streets, but someone help me, between Mills Avenue and Oak Lawn.
Mill Street?
Yeah.
Oaklawn.
So the existing path that's over there now, where it intersects with Main Street, I presume that's where the terminus of the Acosta Trail would be.
Is that the only site that's being proposed at this point? And the reason I ask, I know at one time we had talked, or the discussion had been about maybe the depot. So is the depot off the table and Main Street is the place that we're thinking of as far as the terminus?
I think one of the pros of making Main Street the terminus officially and on record is that it would open up the depot to be used as a trailhead-like facility. And even if it's not exactly on the trailhead, it's close enough that it could be used for that purpose. And Billy referred to something earlier. I don't know if this is what he was talking about with his path pilot program. Is that what you called it? But I'm guessing that it involves somehow bringing cyclists and pedestrians from the trail down there into town. Is that what it's going to be? Okay. So they'll have some recommendations on how we can tie the trail from that part of Main Street down here to the heart of the city.
My last question is all about the Benjamins. Is all of this covered in the grant or the monies that have been donated for terminus? Do we have that?
The remaining $750,000 of the TDA's contribution, I think is eligible for use on a trailhead facility or a terminus facility.
All right. Do you know about how much it might be at this point? I know it may change.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
And we'll try to persuade Friends of Acosta Trail to let some of their money be used for that purpose as well. But they didn't raise their money on that, with that premise. And so it would require some work on their behalf if they're willing to go back to their donors and ask if their contributions can be used for that rather than on the trail directly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
And Wilson, I really appreciate our conversation on Friday, and I apologize as I got a little spirited about a few opinions.
That works.
But I think it's really a move between, and I think you called us a convention of acoustic trail advocates before. And at that point, I think, until we did get to that unprecedented time when we got $46.9 million, we were to receive and try to get information out to build consensus about the acoustic trail and where we were going. And thankful for the NCDOT and those who, and the staff of City of Brevard, working with the staffs in Hendersonville and in Henderson County, developing what we were being briefed. And thanks to Conserving Carolina and Friends of Acoustic Trail, we got a lot of information. And so I think this is good. You're moving now into where these same advocacies are going to be required to do some work. They're going to be required to dig into the details and to give the kind of information this new Acoustic Trail Advisory Board 2.0 is going to expect. So I think you've done a good job of dealing with all that and trying to put that together. I would like to say there's one, there are two little things that I don't know if, and I mentioned it to you the other day. I think I figured out why you don't see the cooperative extension on here is because in the original committee, there were 2 representatives from county commission, and they elected to use one of those for because of the wanting to have a voice to the farmers in the county. That was one. The other was I would like to think if there's a movement here to consider even more from Conserving Carolina, I'd hate to see Mark Tooley's name not on the list, because if anybody needs the Acoustic Trail Award for all the work that's been done, nobody knows the issues better. Nobody has actually been in the field talking to folks upset. He's sort of been a point man. And he's not on there either, but
So I'm glad you brought that up, Mac, because I agree with you. I want him to be involved because he's a font of knowledge. And
Right.
so he's actually been invited and agreed to serve on the working group, and he will fill the FOIT executive director. I know he's not technically their executive director, he's the president of their board, but he's kind of like their executive director, and so he'll be participating in the working group in that
right,
capacity.
because he is amazing. His service to this Acoustic Trail from the existence, from the original beginning, is truly amazing. And he was part of that rump group. He and I were on that rump group for 4 years before this started.
Oh.
So anyway, so that was, and Rebecca was part of that as well. And Rebecca did the negotiations with the railroad between Conserving Carolina. You know, so those were all back in the day, it was all hush hush. But it was all for good things, and that was all led by Chuck McGrady and Chuck Edwards and that group out of Hendersonville. So then Mayor can appreciate all the work that went on to that point, and what you're talking here with agreements between the 3 organizations particularly.
Okay, thank you, Mick. All right, council, we will move on. We've had our discussion. We will come back to this for decisions under new business. Okay, moving on. We have a public hearing, which I believe Aaron Bland, our Assistant Planning Director, is going to present.
Yes, thank you. This is a staff-initiated text amendment to clarify the intent and specific requirement of some UDO language that has requirements for new utility connections to be underground for new development within the city. And currently, that is a requirement in Chapter 13 of the UDO. It is optional for the ETJ. And this is mentioned in 2 chapters, Chapter 5 and Chapter 13. This amendment would remove the one mention of this in Chapter 5, which is the Architectural Standards chapter, and only have it in Chapter 13, which is the Infrastructure Improvement Requirements section. And it would make it more clear that underground wiring must begin where the new lines leave the street right-of-way or an existing easement or existing utility pole. So we're talking about things like power lines, phone lines, things like that. This was discussed by the planning board, and they voted unanimously to recommend approval of the amendments. They did add a slight modification that says new or upgraded lines. This would apply to both of those, not just totally new lines. But they did ultimately vote in favor of this, and also in accordance with state statutes, they submit to you a written consistency statement that's included in your packet. And this is for public hearing purposes only. No vote is requested at this time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Bland. I will officially open the public hearing. No members of the public signed up to speak, so I will officially close the public hearing. I will, at this point, entertain any comments or questions from council. Mr. Wise, any questions?
I don't think I have any questions.
Ms. Holder?
I don't think I do either. Thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
No, and compliment the staff for more improvements.
Mr. Daniel?
I'm pretty sure I don't have any questions.
Mr. Baker?
Me neither.
Okay. Excellent. Well,
Need that from you, man?
we will move on then. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent and information. The following items are on. 1, the tax settlement report of June 2024. 2, the City of Brevard Annual Tax Collection Settlement Report. 3, a resolution directing the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of petition for annexation, Jason Shepherd, 35 Verdery Avenue. 4, Acoustic Trail Advisory Board minutes from March 27, 2024. 5, Acoustic Trail Advisory Board minutes from April 24, 2024. 6, Council Public Works and Utility Committee minutes, May 1st, 2024. 7, Council Public Safety Committee minutes, May 28th, 2024. 8, Council Public Works and Utilities Committee minutes, June 5th, 2024. 9, Council Public Safety Committee minutes, June 24th, 2024. And 10, Council Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee minutes, May 15th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is approved. Moving on, unfinished business. We have the amendment to the traffic schedule to name and establish a regulation for a new city street. And Mr. Bland is once again presenting.
Yes, so if you remember back in June 17th, this was introduced to you. We have accepted dedication of a access road off of Deer Lake Road behind the End Market gas station as a city street. So we need to name it, codify its speed limit and things like that. So the ordinance you have codifies all those regulations, but has no name on it. So we are requesting that you discuss and hopefully approve a name. At the last meeting, it was mentioned that Councilman Morrow could potentially do a little research on the history of the area and propose a potential name, and he has done that and proposes the name Synyard Court to honor the family that owned a lot of the land and was instrumental in the county and city's early history. If you want more information than that, I'm going to ask him to provide it. But if you do want to move forward with that name or any other name, just please make that name clearly identified in any motion to adopt the attached ordinance. So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bland. Council, do I have a motion regarding the naming of this street?
I move that we name the street Synyard Court.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Mr. Daniel?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
I'm excited to hear Mac talk a little bit more about that name.
Mr. Morrow?
No, it's amazing. Captain Synyard was appointed by the senator before the county was formed to survey the town and to locate the courthouse. So you can say that they were involved in the first commission once the county was established in May 28th of 1861. but subsequently, his son would purchase the 300 acres became Camp Carolina, we all know. But it was his son's wife's father's, Wilson meeting grounds were famous in the sense for our religious life. This was the Methodists, all would gather there for 2 weeks.
It's the oldest Methodist establishment.
Yeah, and they had been meeting there for 10 years or more, and they were very formalized, where you would get a tent with your family and pitch it all around this thing, and spend 2 weeks. And it was the social center, it was everything. So these are relatively historic lands in that respect, and you can thank Gene Baker, who did this research, and in the local history room, and when I called him, he said, "Mac, just go read my work," and so we all need to be thankful for that. And I also called Jim Leidy, who grew up there, and Jim, as we know, is a member of a Transylvania Historical Board, and who grew up there on that property and knew all the stories of the Seniors. And even mentioned that the little Seniors, so those of us who grew here, there was a little hut down there, it's called Joe's Little Store. And Jim even said, "You know what that was? That was the construction hut when they built the highway through there." He turned that into Joe's Little Store. But anyway, so there was a lot of little stuff. Jim really thought this was a good idea. And thankfully, thanks to the Transylvania County Historical Society, they heard the same brief and endorsed it as well. Thank you, Ms. Lillard, for that too. But the Seniors would actually donate the land for the cemetery there for Oak Grove Church. So that's all part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow.
Is that enough?
That's great.
Oh, yeah? That whole area? Oh, nice.
Ms. Holder, comments?
The first thing I'm thinking are you sure they weren't Baptists?
They were pretty devout, I can say that.
The lake was right there and everything. The water. I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Wise?
I'm just gonna say, Mac, every time you blow me away with this stuff. This is amazing. I don't know how you do it.
must have been my college professor.
But I think this is a great naming, so thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have a name.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Oh, yes, of course.
I have a question for Mr. Attorney. So we have a motion to name it. Don't we need a motion to approve the ordinance?
Yes,
Oh,
Oh,
Thank you.
and I think that would be the best process, would be to, isn't there a blank on the ordinance,
Yes.
basically?
Yes.
okay. Do I have a
So ask
motion? Yeah.
is it Mr. Daniel who made that motion?
Mr. Daniel, yes.
To amend his motion to include approving the entire ordinance with the name Senior Court.
So moved.
Okay.
And then you want to make sure Mr. Wise reseconds it.
I will resecond that
Okay.
motion.
And council, would you please revote?
revote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We want to be absolutely crossing all those Ts and dotting those Is. Okay. All right, down to new business. All right, we are now back to considering the resolution reforming the Acoustic Trail Advisory Board. We've had the discussion, the presentation and discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the reformed ETAB?
Excuse me, Mayor, there is one additional action that the board needs to consider here, and that is appointing members of the council to fill.
Yes, that's
those
coming
two
next after this, Wilson. I've got it. That's one at a time, please. Okay. First, let's approve the reformatted board. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution reformatting the Acoustic Trail Advisory Board?
So moved.
And can I clarify for the record?
Please, by all means.
It's the new one that was placed before us by the manager, not the one that went in the
Yeah.
past. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Who made the motion?
I did.
Thank you.
Baker, okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The new format is approved. Now, I need a motion to appoint the two council members to be the co-chairs of the new ETAB. Do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to appoint Councilman Baker as chair and Councilman Morrow as vice chair.
Okay, I believe the write-up actually has it as co-chairs.
Or each as co-chairs.
A co, yeah, it's written as chair and co-chairperson.
Yeah, so
So-
Aaron would be the chair.
Well, is that, on this one, it has a chairperson appointed and then a co-chairperson
Yes,
appointed.
but it
So-
doesn't say a vice chair.
Sorry, so can I revise my motion? To say co-chair.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to have Councilman Baker as chair and Councilman Morrow as co-chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Wise, any discussion?
I think these two have a lot of passion about this project, and as much as I wanted to do it, alas, sometimes we can't do everything we want.
Ms. Holder?
So the co-chairperson, I think chairperson and co-chairperson, are the roles the same or different? The co-chairperson fills in when the chairperson is not there, as far as the difference between the vice chair and co-chair?
Oh, Mr.
In
Manager?
my opinion, it would be up to those two gentlemen to decide who was going to chair and facilitate the meetings. But both would be eligible to do so in the other's absence. And also, both would be eligible to refer matters to the agenda. And so that's really the most important distinction, in my opinion, of a chair and co-chair designation, is that they can both refer agenda items.
Okay.
Without the, approval of the full board. They can do that exclusively themselves.
All right.
Mr. Morrow?
I'm good, thank you for the confidence.
Mr. Daniel?
I have no comment.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I'm excited to get started.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we have a chair and a co-chair. Congratulations. All right. Moving on, our next item of new business is consider a resolution dedicating the western terminus of the Acosta Trail on Main Street in downtown Brevard. And I believe our city manager will be presenting this.
I'm going to ask one of the staff people to please bring up the SWOT analysis that is attached to the agenda on the screen here. So staff's position on this is neutral. This was really a council-initiated question. But in order to sort of facilitate the conversation, we've come up with just some pros and cons to the proposal to consider. And so I just want to draw your attention to those and be quiet and let you all discuss.
Okay,
Well,
Mr. Attorney, do I need a motion?
There
open
could be a
discussion?
motion on the resolution that's contained in the packet, perhaps.
Okay, so I'd like to get a motion, so then we can open discussion. Do I have a motion concerning the resolution?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution dedicating the western terminus of the Acosta Trail on Main Street in downtown Brevard.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, and we will start discussion. Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I had a hand in crafting this resolution, and there's been a lot of discussion both at the joint session and at the committee level with the Acosta Trail Advisory Board. We've even briefly discussed it at the Parks, Trails, and rec committee level. I really see this as fulfilling the promise and the potential of the Acousta Trail as originally intended when the city of Brevard, in a moment that is hard to remember, but when the trail was not a given. And the city raised their hand and said that this is a project which is so transformational and important to the city that we are raising our hand and taking a leadership role in making this trail happen. That was occurring around the time when I joined council, but just before I got on council. And the steps that those city leaders took, I think, are going to be seen as some of the most important in the decades to come. But I really see this as an extension of that, and a really, really important decision for us to make. The logo that we approved at the joint meeting, it said Henderson and Brevard on the top. It did not say Hendersonville and Pisgah Forest. And the trail reaches all the way to downtown Hendersonville and their main street. And I believe, a project as transformational as this should also reach our main street. And as much as we talk about the incredible benefits to economic development, and of course visitors and tourism, if you're driving 500 miles or 1,000 miles to come ride the Acousta Trail, do you really care whether it reaches downtown Brevard or not, or whether it stops in Pisgah Forest? Probably not. But for the people that live here, and for the people that are operating businesses downtown and along that entire corridor, it's going to become very, very important that the Acousta Trail reaches all the way to downtown. And, I'm not under any, pie in the sky notions that this is the end of the story. There's a lot of work that this is going to lead to. But I believe it's an incredibly important beginning for Brevard, and important for us to plant a flag in the ground and say that this is the end of the Acousta Trail, so that we can then start to make decisions that help make that dream a reality. And I know there's been some discussion about the current Estato Trail and how this affects the names of our current trail system. And I don't think this in any way overshadows the Estato Trail name, the importance of that trail to the city. I think this honors the forethought from so many that went in, city leaders of the past who took a risk on building the multi-use path to begin with. Because the only real reason we can make this decision tonight is because the trail already reaches Main Street, which is a relatively new development in the last few years. And the decisions that led up to that fact have sort of brought us here today and made this a reality. So there's going to be more to come, but I think this is an incredibly important decision to make and important for the city of Brevard.
Mr. Wise?
Yeah, I agree with most everything Councilman Baker said. I think it's really critically important we find a connection between our two communities in Hendersonville and here. The Main Street to Main Street ideal is a very clear concept, very understandable, and it compels people who are kind of completionists, like I am, to want to ride that thing from the mile zero all the way to the middle of our downtown where we really want them. And no shade to Oscar Blues, some people work there and then love it, but even they don't necessarily want people to stop there. And there's a real danger of that happening if we don't kind of give this connection And that's where we're going to have partners like HOB working with us to kind of help pull those threads together. So I think this is an exciting proposal.
Mr. Daniel?
I agree with what both of these fellows have said. I think it's, when you have a vision and you're this close to completing it, let's do that. Let's do what we said we were gonna do. And, I see that bringing the trail to Main Street, to downtown Brevard, as the completion of that vision.
Ms. Holder?
I think one of the weaknesses is part of the answer to my question earlier, that since it is beyond the federally funded footprint of the project, then we would have to use local dollars in order to fund it. So do we have those resources at this point, or is that something we have to look at again later, or to build those resources?
Yes, ma'am. As I said, presumably the local local Acoustic Trail dollars, so the TDA contribution, perhaps the FOID contributions, could be used for enhancements to this trail. Also, the R5800 NCDOT project is going to jumpstart some of the improvements to the trail along that corridor. We were just talking today about things we want to approach them with to further convert that project into a more trail-like piece of infrastructure. It's not going to match the trail exactly under any circumstances, but there are some enhancements we can make to that to make it function more like a trail, and we were just talking about those today. They aren't going to fund a 12-foot sidewalk, for example, but they're going to be building a 10-foot sidewalk. So, they're going to help jumpstart and break ground on some improvements that maybe we can get FOID and TDA to fund the enhancements to. So that's an opportunity on the sheet here, that many of those improvements are going to be done in some form anyway by NCDOT.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I'm just in my head thinking exactly where, on what part of Main Street it will be. I think Mill Street was mentioned earlier. Is it that far down or closer to town? Do we know?
Well, so I think your question is assuming that there's going to be a piece of infrastructure right at the terminus of the trail. And that might not be the case. It might be the case. We don't know. That's one of the questions I think that Aaron was alluding to. But I think to start with, this will be mainly a branding exercise. So that, for example, when Henderson County opens their segment of the trail later this year, they can have mileage markers that, say 20 miles to Main Street instead of 18 and a half miles to Pisgah Forest. So mainly it'll be a branding exercise, but perhaps in the future, and depending on what funding becomes available, it would mean putting some sort of, it could mean putting some sort of infrastructure directly on Main Street.
It could just be a
So
sign.
really,
Yeah,
we
could
just
just
don't
be a
know,
sign.
which is fine. I was just trying to get my head wrapped around it, so thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
Well, I would hope we would push this decision down the road. And maybe it's because I'm the only homegrown guy here, sitting up here, but the history of it means so much to me in that the Estito Trail, I haven't gotten in my head how if you have them, they're both going together, maybe that works. But I don't see Acoustic Trail overriding the Estito Trail, because the Estito Trail was created in 1856 between Rosamond and Pisgah Forest. And so if there's two, so that tells you right there that they're linked. They are linked. And so that was the idea. The history of it just goes on, and many Cherokee heritage people that live here understand that perhaps more than most. But it was the very first foot trail that existed in this land, in this river valley. And that goes way, way back. So I think we just need to be real careful about what we do, how we treat the Esteto Trail. And I think it's an opportunity. We've always talked about this competition between Gateway and downtown. Well, heck fire, what connects it? The Esteto Trail does. And it seems to me that's a real opportunity to improve, and I'm glad to hear, we put $12 million in this, no, $12,000 in this year's budget. Whew, yeah, that would be a little bit fun. You know, for the same design team that's working on the Cooster Trail to look at the Esteto Trail for improvements, right? So we know that it's needed. There's no comparison, thank you, Wilson, for comparing the structure or the characteristics, the engineering of the two are entirely different. One is safe, one is not so safe. So the Esteto Trail needs a lot of work. So just to say we're gonna do it without knowing how much it's gonna cost or where those issues are, it's more like in my view, we're waving a magic wand. But you all have read my piece. You wrote I handed all that out at the last meeting. I'm not gonna go there anymore, but you know where I am.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion passes 4-1. All right, that is the end of new business, and we are on remarks and future agenda considerations. And let's start with Ms. Holder.
I appreciate everyone being here this evening as usual, and that is all I have. Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Okay. Mr. Wise.
I've been talking to a number of candidates that are running in our community, and one of the first things we've talked about is talking to the public. And so I would love to thank all of you for being here, telling us your opinion, writing us, calling us. I cannot tell you how important that is. We are here for you, so thank you for being here. I don't even want to, it's so important. And then the second thing is there is a WNC Housing Forum on this Friday in August 9th in the Blue Ridge Conference Hall in Flat Rock. It's a great opportunity to talk about housing needs regionally in our community if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Baker?
I have no comments tonight.
What?
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Morrow?
I would like to do, Chief, a shout out to Lieutenant Ralph Cobb and Sergeant Wilson Bunn. Two of your finest. I want to say that unfortunately about 10 days ago, Kier Manufacturing went the cloud and you heard about the international sort of problem last week security wise, but the Russians and the Nigerians and folks all over the country got into our cloud, and thankfully they weren't able to penetrate into our system. But they did get into our cloud, were able to duplicate exactly our invoices. One was a large one to Canada, and another one, the big distributor on the East Coast for our joiner stones. And trying to get them to send their money to Texas instead of Brevard. But anyway, those guys know their stuff. They got us in, and processed the criminal stuff. But the biggest thing is they understand enough to where they could actually get everybody's computer back up, understand Microsoft, the intricacies of it, and we're able to get everybody back up and running within an hour. That's a big thank you and a shout out to you guys.
Yeah. Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I have a couple of things of concerns that I have. One is the Jailhouse Hill sidewalk. I think, we've given City Camper multiple passes. I think they've proven that things are not going to be moving along at any pace, and they need to get that thing cleaned up. I think we've given them every opportunity. The other is I'm reading the minutes, some of the meetings, committees, and there's comment on changing ordinances for parking in Railroad Avenue to be able to make some changes there. And I saw that was mentioned in 2 meetings, but nothing's come to us yet. And I'm concerned that this is something that I'm concerned about. It's my neighborhood, people that I talk to, that I would like to see some movement on that if possible.
That'll be on the next agenda. It wasn't on this agenda because we missed the advertising deadline,
Okay.
but it'll be on the 19th.
All right, well, thank you. That was all I had.
Mr. Attorney?
Nothing, just a reminder that we do have a closed session this evening.
Madam Clerk?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Just a reminder that our next meeting will be held at the Mary C. Jenkins Community Center in an effort to make government more transparent and meet people where they are. We've decided to experiment with holding a meeting remotely, and if it works out well, we might go to other locations here in the future if council agrees. The other thing I'd like to remind people is that our public safety agencies are monitoring Hurricane Debbie. Aaron and I were looking at the latest projected path right before the meeting started, and it looks like it's projected to miss us now. But if it doesn't and it parks itself over North Carolina and South Carolina and we get a lot of rain later this week, I want to encourage everyone to be water wise and turn around, don't drown, and just try to stay safe during that storm.
Thank you. Okay, just a couple of comments. One, I will remind everybody that tomorrow night is National Night Out, right, Chief? That is correct. I mean, it was, you know, our police department is such an important part of us as a city. And the relationship between our police department and the community, which is what National Night Out is all about. It's a national day. It's always the first Tuesday in August every year. And it's the idea that the police department comes out and invites the community to come meet them and to interact with them and to get that understanding. So it is a wonderful opportunity. It is tomorrow night from 6 to 9 p.m. on Main Street. I know all of the law enforcement, the sheriff's department, the police department. I think you actually have a few others that come will be there. And we're also, I believe Heart of Brevard is having our square dance the same night. So, I mean, we have all sorts of things going on tomorrow evening on Main Street. So be sure to come out and join us. And it was very nice this evening to watch one of our police officers get promoted and watch another one get recognized. Yes?
You're never gonna hear this a lot from the police, but I'm gonna tell you, don't forget about the fire department.
Okay, all right.
They're out there.
They're out there too. That's true. The fire department is out there, and I know the kids love getting all over the fire trucks. I mean, usually the county brings the police dogs, and I mean, it's a fun night. I mean, you can watch the police dogs attack, you know, and climb on fire trucks, and watch all the latest SWAT gear that's out there, and also. Anyways, we don't want to forget about that. That is coming up tomorrow. And again, I just want to say, you know, as always, we just have such a tremendous amount going on. Let's not forget that we've got that public hearing that Emily briefed us about, and that is on our affordable housing initiative that is moving forward. This is a big deal. So when we talk about the importance of public input, this is your chance to come and share your vision of what you see happening there. And so the details are on the flyers there. I know it's in the paper, it's on the website, it's out there, but it's important. We also have another big public input coming, and that is on the Acoustic Trail. And that is going to be on September 10th, right? I got the date right. That is going to be a public input session on our trail, which, as you heard tonight, is moving along at an incredible pace. You know, and we started this 3 years ago. We, you know, didn't know how we were going to get the money. We got the money. We didn't know quite how it was going to work between us and the county. Well, we've worked out that we've taken the lead. And we're working on the details, and we're moving really, really fast, making that dream become reality. And so we've got our new structure in place. We're going to be working a lot of those details, and we're at the point where we are going back out with DFI for that public input on the trail. So mark your calendars for September 10th, 5 to 7 p.m. For that public input. So lots going on. And I want to thank everybody that took time out to come tonight, and also that took time out to come to the public input session that we had a week ago on the new district in the Pisgah Forest area. So thank you, everybody. And I think with that, we will move into our closed session. So I need a motion to go into closed session, and I need to have everybody leave, and I need to turn off the broadcast.
For pending litigation.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session for pending litigation. Thank you, everybody.